Hello. Today's episode is a conversation with Danny Mulligan, who is a composer, guitarist, vocalist, musician, and PhD student in clinical psychology at Wayne State University. Danny's music project is called Exodus to Infinity, which just put out a new album called Archetype Asylum, which everybody should go and listen to right now. It is one of the few albums that has really excited me in the last couple of years, and I cannot recommend it enough. In our conversation, Danny and I talk about what it was like to create this album, composing in general, the relationship between music and other types of academics, and even get into some psychology territory. But before we get to that, please remember to like, leave a comment, and subscribe. And if you would like to consider supporting my content generally, please consider visiting my Patreon page.
Welcome to Music in Mind with Anthony Caulkins.
Hello. Hey, everybody. This is Danny Mulligan. He's a composer, guitarist, and also a PhD candidate in clinical psychology at the moment. And he just came out with an album called Archetype Asylum, which we talked about a little bit before the podcast, but I have to say is one of the most exciting pieces of music I've heard lately. And I've been really bummed out about a lot of music. I felt really bored by it, by not hearing any new music that I like. And listening to this album has just excited me, and it amps me up, and I want to put it on in my car. And I'm happy that it's not put out by a major studio, and that there's a friend of mine who is making exciting music.
Yeah. Well, yeah. No, yeah, that's, I'm really flattered to hear that. And I feel the same way about it being hard to find music that excites you.
Yeah.
And also, yeah, I'm getting more and more into just listening to, well, I mean, I don't have that much time as much as I used to listen to music, you know? And I more and more want to listen to music of people that I know.
Right. I feel the same way.
Yeah.
I make a point, especially when I'm reading or studying or working on programming or composing or something. Well, probably not while composing, but with other things, to be putting on music from people I know specifically, and then trying to use that as the starting point to branch out. And then, who are people they know who make music, and having more of the networking from me rather than what did Universal put out this year?
Right. Yeah. Yeah, there should be some, I mean, I guess that kind of exists on some, websites or social networks, but a way to have that a little bit more organized of just if you could filter and just only see artists that you know and then the artists that they know that are indie artists or something like that. I don't know.
Like a Facebook for music.
Yeah.
You have to be music friends with them or something.
Yeah.
So who do you listen to?
Recently so actually I don't listen to music that often in the last couple of years, I'll be honest. Yep. Recently I've been getting back into some Frank Zappa. That's been a huge influence. Chick Corea, who just passed away. Mm-hmm. Been listening to him recently. What was there's a big one that I kind of discovered recently. It'll come to me. Somebody asked me this recently, and I just completely blanked, and I couldn't think of anything that I've listened to.
It's okay. I know what you mean about not listening to music. I have this suspicion that nobody's really listening to music, or not nobody actually, but it's really died down in the culture. And I've posted a few times on Facebook, mining my friends who's listening to what, and I get lots of answers, but I suspect that there's a lot of dishonesty in those answers, and I feel like the problem with posing a question on Facebook, what are you listening to, is everybody wants to show off how cool the music they know is.
Right.
Which is not really what I'm looking for. I want to know, honestly, who is listening to music and excited about it. Because, growing up, I listened to music all the time. And, up until probably grad school for me, it was, a huge part of my life all the time. And then it just pretty sharply took a drop off.
Totally. Yeah. A huge part of it for me was in the car. I feel like I
Yep.
spent more time in the car.
Yep.
Growing up and in high school, and then yeah, just like having a Walkman, or iPod.
Yep.
I don't have an iPod now.
Me neither.
Walking around campus, things like that. Yeah, I was just pumping. I used to go to bed. I used to fall asleep listening to music all the
Yep.
time.
Same. Yep.
I can't imagine doing that now. It would just keep me awake, but it probably did, and I just didn't even know it. At
Yeah.
the time. Random tangent, but have you ever had the experience where you're listening and then you fall asleep, and then you wake up, and you're like halfway in a dream state, and the music sounds like you can't believe how good it sounds, and it's like a normal segment of the music you've probably heard before, but it's like you're in a different world. And I've had that a couple times with like Jimi Hendrix solos. And now like when I go back and I listen, I get this feeling of like, oh yeah, I remember that one time.
Oh, that's amazing because you connect it to that memory. Wow.
Yeah.
I don't have that. I sometimes dream music that is like the best music I've ever heard in my life. And then I wake up and I try and remember it. And even if I can kind of remember it, it sort of sucks. But like what I love about it is like in the dream, I can just define it as the best music ever, and therefore it feels like the best music ever.
Yeah.
Like, just like that idea that it's just like within the dream, it's defined as that good. So no matter what it is, it'll sound amazing.
Right. Yeah. Like I wonder how much you're actually even like there's sound as part of your phenomenology when you're dreaming, or it's just like I am hearing really good music, but you're not actually even hearing it in your dream. Like,
Right.
How do you remember it? Like, do you actually remember?
Sometimes
melodies?
there's one particular case. I don't know. It was so cheesy. I had this song. I must have been like 19 or something, and I dreamed this song. It was like, and I remember waking up and being like, "Oh my god, that was like the most amazing song I've ever." Like the melody's perfect, everything about it, and I like wrote out what I remembered, and it was like, "Oh, this is like the lamest melody of all time."
Yeah.
But I did like I kind of remembered a little bit of it, or I thought I did. I guess you can't really confirm if a memory of a dream is correct, but
Right. Yeah, that's the problem. Yeah, it kind of reminds me of like if you're smoking weed or just doing
Right.
other drugs and you have an idea or you play something and it has the same sort of effect where in the moment it sounds incredible. And usually actually I
so much, especially smoking weed, and you're like, "Fuck yeah!"
Right.
Or like mushrooms, it's the same kind of thing.
Yeah, I haven't done that. I haven't done music with mushrooms, but yeah, I don't know about you, but I found that like it's not a good idea. Like it sounds usually bad because it's like sloppy and imprecise. Like there's error, like sour notes and things. But sometimes the like overall idea is actually pretty novel and pretty like it can be shaped into something that is good.
Well, there's some people who like the process of you start sort of like weed to get the process started, then sober for editing, and then weed for like re-editing.
Oh, wow. They have it chiseled down to like a 3-step process.
Yep.
I didn't know that. That makes sense to me.
Yeah. Well, how do you feel about playing like drunk or high or that kind of thing?
I don't do too much of it.
Right.
When I was in Trap Saturn, I would play I played bass mainly, and I think therefore it felt a little bit more natural to like have a buzz, have a couple beers.
Yep.
When just playing the bass line. But I think that probably overall I would not get too intoxicated because I think I would just get sloppy and I've never really experimented with it. I bet you I could maybe get into some headspace where I'd like lose my mind and be like Jimi Hendrix and like have a moment like that, but it hasn't really ever happened to me yet.
I think there's different kinds of performances too. Like before the pandemic, I was working a lot in like the pit orchestra scene in LA and like playing musical theater shows and stuff like that. And especially like on 2-show days, some of us would go out and there was one guy in particular and he'd be like, "How many beers can I have between shows? Like if we have 2 hours, can I get through like 6 or 8 beers or something?" But he was amazing. I mean, he would still nail it every time on the drums. And if I had like 2, I'm starting to slip, and at 3, like it's a horrible experience in the pit because I'm sitting there and I'm making mistakes, and like I can't even stop. Like I can't not make mistakes, and I'm like, all right, focus, and it's like it's not working.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing. Like the muscle, I don't know, there's different types of players. Some people are really good at having muscle memory and playing something the exact same every time. Like once they've got it, they got it. They're in the pocket with it or whatever. I've never been like that. It's like every single time I play, it's a little bit different. And I even find myself like I have an urge to like, I'm bored. I'll just make something different because it just occurs to me in that moment. Like I want to try something new. It's not even like a choice almost. It just happens. Like I want to mess with this. And so, I think because of that, if I had, even 3 beers, I would be doing that, but it would be like bad choices. Like let's make this note flat, but no, that's a terrible choice. In that moment.
My God. You just get fired for that.
Yeah.
Oh man, those I feel like the experience of like the rock band, I feel like it lends itself more to like inebriation, because sometimes that sloppiness can be good, and that kind of like making bad choices can be good in a sense.
Right.
Versus like a show that there's 5,000 people there who have all paid $60 to $100 a ticket.
Right.
There's not a whole lot of room for like, oh, you made that note flat, did you?
That just gave me an idea, though, of like a show where part of the show is that there's like this huge incident where somebody is like drunk in the pit, and then they like have like a fit, and they like smash their guitar, and like the show stops, and that's then part of like the plot somehow. I would like to see that.
That's pretty good. So your new album, Archetype Asylum, right?
Yep.
That the title, first of all, is it like a Jungian thing?
It is, yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I didn't know that it was like not as well known. I mean, I think people our age probably know Archetype, like just from like literature or just it's in like TV shows and stuff. But I had enough people that were like, "Oh, what is that?" That I was sort of surprised by that. But yeah, I was getting really into Jungian psychology and just like reading his original texts before I started grad school. And yeah, I wasn't really thinking like, oh, I'm going to write a concept album based upon Jungian psychology, but I just kind of found myself writing songs that were like that. Like there was one, like Shadow Self is explicitly, I had that idea going into it, but then other ones, I realized retrospectively, oh, that maps onto this archetype, that. And then I just realized, oh, actually every song maps onto a different archetype, and it kind of just worked out even when I didn't plan it. So, yeah. That's
really interesting. The composition also of it is fascinating. I feel like you and I had an interesting experience in undergrad where we met at University of Wisconsin-Madison, for anybody who doesn't know.
Yes.
Well, because we were both composition majors, but we were both also in the classical guitar studio.
Yep.
So we kind of had this funny matching up thing.
I remember that. I remember when I first showed up to the classical guitar studio.
Right.
And and I met you, and you're like, oh, you're in composition? Yeah, me too. And I didn't know what to think because I was a complete
this asshole.
No, not in that way, but going into the classical guitar masterclass or whatever, because I was completely new to that world. Like I was a complete noob going in. But guitar players we just get along. You know?
Yeah, it's true. But it's interesting because you and I sort of share that background, and I feel like we also have similar tastes in music outside of sort of classical or academic music. Slightly different. I mean, I think it diverges a little bit. I remember that you were like very into Dream Theater.
Yeah.
And I feel like I was very into Tool, and I feel like we appreciated the other, but didn't listen quite as much.
Yeah.
Across that, but in your new album, I'm just wondering the relationship of the composition and like working with Steven Dembski and all that, because some of the tracks, especially like midway through, have a lot of sort of compositional chops, I would say, in terms of notes on paper work, even, or at least related to it, maybe.
Right. Yeah. I feel the same way. Also, that Jimi Hendrix, I think, weren't you a big Hendrix guy? Like when you first started playing guitar?
Yeah, I have a complicated relationship with Jimi Hendrix. I used to ask this question on my podcast at the end as like a fun question, like who do you think is an important person in the history of music? Like if you were going to teach a rock history class, you would definitely teach them, but you don't really like their music.
And you chose Jimi Hendrix.
And for me, Jimi Hendrix is a little bit that, and it isn't that I don't like his playing. I don't feel like a lot of the songwriting is there for me.
Yeah, I could see that. I've heard that critique before as well, and I get that for sure. But yeah, I don't know. I think I tried to like go back to my roots in a sense with this. I guess. We talked about this way back in the day. That like started out. I didn't listen to classical music at all growing up. I mean, I played in band and in orchestra, and so I got exposed through that. But yeah, I was raised on basically. I started with like the Beatles, and then like punk, and then classic rock and blues, and then progressive rock, progressive metal.
Yeah.
And then into that world, and like I wanted to make it in that like academic, contemporary composition world, and in that situation it was like, you cannot write tonal music. Like tonal music is objectively
tonal
inferior.
music's for losers.
Yeah, you'll be laughed out. They'll all hate you.
They'll all hate you.
But like more or less, I mean that's an exaggeration, but those messages were said in a similar way.
Yep.
And so then I tried to get into that, and I did. Like some of the Stravinsky, Leo Brouwer, the guitar composer and player, super. I loved his stuff. I still do. Debussy, Ravel, French Impressionist guys. Schoenberg, all that stuff. And so yeah, what Dembski taught us, serial composition.
Is Steven Dembski, by the way. Everybody should read his paper on circles.
Right.
Everybody should know his stuff. I think he's had such a huge impact on me.
Yeah, me too. We should have a Dembski appreciation moment right now. Yeah, I'm writing this like essay that I'm gonna send out to people that bought the deluxe version, and in part of it I was like reflecting on music school and kind of what I'm getting through right now, and mentioned how Dembski was like the ray of light in a hall of darkness. Like he made everything
that's quite a statement.
Right. I mean, I'm joking.
He made everything worthwhile.
Yeah.
I was going to kill myself until I met that guy.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not that far off. He was so easy to work with. He had a great sense of humor, and amazing composer. And yeah, his circles idea, that paper, changed the way I think about music fundamentally.
Same.
Yeah.
I still actually a lot of my work now is very based on that. I love the fact that he is talking about the power of the tonal system and what is unique about it, and partially why it's been so strong. That does not relate to the harmonic series and all that mumbo jumbo about like the naturalism of tonality or something silly like that. And I don't know how you feel about that. I'm making strong statements, but
right. I feel I feel in between, but I want you were gonna say something else.
But just the applying a lot of the lessons you can learn from tonality in non-traditional pitch worlds, so that you can develop a sense of function and motion. And that being like the weakness of the 12-tone composers. is it's very difficult to develop motion through harmony.
Yeah.
Because everything's equal.
Yeah. Yeah, and you don't have like that same sense of scale degrees having a sound and having a functional relationship to other scale degrees. Yeah, that actually one of the... So get back to your original question, although there's like a bunch in there that I wanted to talk about too, but I did use a scale that I came up with, I think, during my time with Dembski in King Other in the breakdown, that was used, like, I made it using the circles method. I actually don't remember exactly, if I had to do it right now, I could probably figure it out, but it's like, it's not in here right now. But yeah, so a lot of those moments I tried to like basically infuse. The thing I love about like post-tonal music or like concert music, however you want to call it, is the harmony. I do like it within the tonal context, just because I was raised that way, and most people just have that as their like worldview. It's hard to get outside of that.
My worldview is tonal.
Right.
That's amazing.
Except for like gestures, like in horror movies or things like that, where the atonality has like a function in a plot. But yeah, so I guess I tried to sprinkle in that some like advanced harmony in there. And then also I think Dembski did help with like structuring the composition and having like motivic development and parallelisms at like different levels, if that makes sense.
Yes.
So yeah, and then applying that to like the progressive rock like medium. Yeah.
Well, I think it's another thing about the writing on your album is the forms of a lot of the tracks are more complex than just a basic like verse, pre-chorus, chorus. Even if that is the general structure, the way that you're moving in between them and relating them to each other, I think gives it a very unified and a much more expansive feel.
Thanks.
Like the tracks feel very expansive, even in a contained form.
That's cool. I didn't think about it that way, but yeah, I became allergic to like the like pop song structures. And actually I never really was into them in a way ever since I started writing music. I just because I get like I always want to be switching to something new. Yeah. So I didn't like sit down. This is the thing, is like in music school you like sit down and you have a conceptual model for your piece and then you like write it, or that was part of what we were taught to do. But this was all like intuitive for me, so I didn't have that, but I think it was like in the background working. But yeah, I tend to like music that has just kind of like its own form. Like there are some verse, chorus, or bridge like functions, but it still kind of has the through composed feel, right? Where it's just morphing.
Especially how it morphs, because like maybe it has something like a verse and a chorus, and maybe it even repeats, and then you add like a sample in there, and so the music changes, and then out of the sample is a solo, and so it even though it's referencing itself through its harmony and stuff like that, it's still continually changing.
Yeah, that's kind of what I want from music is I don't know, like a journey. And where things happen where it's not expected. Where like at the beginning of the song, you would not think, oh, I know it's going to go in this direction. Right. The other day I was listening to, I was trying to go and like figure out one of my favorite songs of all time. And
What's the song?
So my favorite of all time is Octavarium by Dream Theater.
Okay.
Yeah. How about you?
Maybe Lateralis by Tool.
I think you introduced me to that.
That's the Fibonacci one.
Yeah.
Where the syllables are the Fibonacci series.
I don't know if I knew that part.
Yeah, the lyrics are are set up syllabically in a Fibonacci series. So it's 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Oh, wow.
I love it because the singer thinks
mind.
it's so stupid. He's like, it's so blatant and dumb and just slapped on there. But I think it actually works really, really well. Anyway, so your favorite song? Is that the one you were trying to work on?
No, so Octavarium's my favorite, and it is like that. So I think that, the whole album kind of has that flavor. But what I was going to say is Layla. That was the first song when I was like in middle school. And first just like the riff. That was before I got into classic rock, and I was like, oh, this is the best thing I've ever heard.
It's great.
Yeah, I still love it. And then I remember like hearing when the piano comes in at the end, it just completely switches chords and tempo and feel. And I just loved it. I like came to appreciate the ending as my favorite part and not like the badass riff at the beginning. And so I think that impacted me. Like I didn't put it together until a couple weeks ago, but it's like, oh yeah, that's what I'm trying to do, is like that moment where there's this big expansive shift and it gives you this like feeling. I don't know. It gives me chills when I'm like listening to Layla or Octavarium, certain moments when it opens up and changes the structure. Yeah.
It's interesting, the idea that it's right at the end too. It's like a fade out and everything changes.
Right. Yeah, and it's like another 3 minutes or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's I can't think of the Beatles song that does that too. Right at the very end, the whole song has happened, basically. The song is over. They're doing a fade out. They change keys and they start singing it in canon. Just for the fade out, for like 10 seconds of music, maybe. And it's all this work. It's just like all this musical work for that.
Yeah.
And like, what does that mean? What are you doing?
That's so cool. Yeah, I can't think of which one you're talking about either. But,
I know, it's like right there. I keep thinking 8 days a week. It's not 8 days a week, but I was listening to that the other day. I can't, I don't know. I'll think of it at some point.
Yeah.
I'll like put a little note at the bottom of this section of the
the podcast. I love when
so
videos do that. Yeah. Normally it's like for mistakes and things like that.
Yeah. Oh, I did that on one too. I got the date of something wrong, like way wrong. So yeah, that's cool. So you have sort of the Dembskian, the composerly side coming into it. You have your history and your love of progressive metal and rock and guitar music, obviously. And then there's the Zappa side. Because I feel like the album also has this, like it knows that some of it is silly.
Yeah, I'm glad
I love it. Like, it's a little bit like goofy and nerdy and dorky and silly. And then it knows. And it's saying like, oh, I know this is like goofy. And let's be goofy.
Okay, yes. Anthony, I'm so happy that you know that that's what I was doing, because I was nervous that people wouldn't pick up on that. And they're like, oh, he thinks he's serious. Like, like this is really awkward.
There is seriousness to it.
Yeah.
There's craft. There's very serious craft, but then there's also the fun.
Yeah.
Let's have fun. Let's be silly.
Yeah. That's another thing that I kind of had a crystallizing moment where I realized, oh, like the humor that I like and just a lot of things in life that I enjoy are like combining the highbrow and the lowbrow, or just like being absurdist but also like very genuine, like within like 30 seconds for each other, like right after each other,
right,
and going back and forth. It's like really weird. I think I got it from my dad. My dad does that too, where like he has such dry sarcasm, but also speaks that way normally. And it's like sometimes you cannot tell, is he being completely serious or completely sarcastic. It's I don't know. It's a funny feeling, and I like that feeling when you like aren't sure if it's satire or like what's the word? like self-consciously putting something on, like winking at you in a way.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like it's interesting because I think humor exists in that space sort of naturally, because laughter, you're not necessarily happy. Laughter isn't happy. It's not scared. It's like, it's this weird thing as an emotion. I mean, maybe you've studied this a little bit in your PhD research, or I don't know, maybe you can speak on this, but like, whatever that impulse is to laugh, it seems like it's related to emotions of sadness and happy and angry, but it isn't really any of those.
Yeah, no, I haven't studied it at all. It's actually, that's like sorely missing in the psychology curriculum. Like, it's interesting in therapy. I'm mainly training to be a clinical psychologist, so specializing in treatments, therapy, etc. And there's not really anybody talking about the role of humor and laughter.
Interesting.
In terms of a serious scholar, at least that I've heard of. But it is. I mean, other than like the Freudian idea of it being a like sophisticated defense mechanism, which I do buy into.
I mean, because it seems like a little bit of like related to a panic response or something, right?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. There's so many different ways that it can happen. Sometimes it's you feel such a surge of emotion that you control it by turning it into a joke, and like so you avoid the panic and like the embarrassment or like social affront that would come from that, and turn it into a joke. Right. Or it's just like you're like, I know that's a problem. I know that's really fucked up, but I don't want to go there right now. Yep. I can't afford to go right there right now, so I'm going to turn it into like self-deprecating humor.
Or something. Deprecating something, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like the most powerful humor to me is something that is both a joke and not a joke at the same time. Like Leonard Bernstein had a whole lecture on that with The Rite of Spring, Stravinsky's Rite of Spring, and how it itself is a joke, but it's also like a comment on the death of tonality and the death of like the lineage of Western music. And it's like it is a joke, and it's silly and it's awesome, but it's also not funny. It's like a very serious statement. And I don't know if that's what Stravinsky thought of it. He's just using it as an example of how a joke can be the most serious thing you say.
Right. Yeah. Wow. I would love to listen to that lecture. That the Rite of Spring is maybe, well, like I already said, Octavarium is my favorite. But I think maybe it's the most impressive musical work that I've ever.
I mean, it is. It's awesome. It's impressive. But he was pointing everything's wrong, right? The orchestration's all messed up. Everything's in the wrong instrument. Not everything, but.
Right, yeah, starting with the bassoon intro that's super high C.
Right. Yeah. But then even further, I don't know if you remember when we looked at it in orchestration at UW, but like the high E flat clarinet was playing below the regular B flat clarinets, and like just like goofy orchestration where like everybody is playing the wrong thing on their instrument.
Right, yeah, it's like he's stretching everybody to their outer limits to get. I don't know if we tied it to like that primitive aesthetic that he's going for. Yeah. That tied in with the choreography of what was that guy?
Yes. What was his name? Nijinsky.
Oh yeah, good memory.
He also did Prelude on the After. He did the choreography for Prelude on the Afternoon of a Faun too. That was the big one where he was like making like masturbating gestures on stage and freaking everyone out.
Okay, I missed that somehow.
Yeah, it was like it was all these people enjoyed making public scandals, I think.
Yeah. So there is an element of that in my music too, where part of what I'm trying to do sometimes is seeing if I can like slip a joke in where like I think it is a joke, but then people take it seriously. But then also like the opposite thing, if it's like I'm serious but they think it's a joke. I don't know why I like that, but
which do you like better? If they think you're being serious but you're joking, or
that one?
The opposite? I think that's more fun.
Yeah.
Like, it's a little like hurtful if you're being serious and people think you're joking.
Yeah.
That's a little harder to deal with.
It's actually really hurtful. I don't like it at all.
but it's amusing if you're joking and people think you're serious.
Right. Yeah. If you like, okay, so it's almost like if it's planned, if I plan that I'm going to be serious and they're going to joke, then I can sort of laugh at it inside when it's happening. But it's when you're not trying to do that, when you're just like earnestly being earnest.
Like, guys, my car is broken. And ha ha ha. Good one. Yeah. Yep. So, getting more into the lyrics then. So there's like the humor aspect. There also seems to be some more like maybe social commentary in the lyrics. You're the one talking about the shadow and capitalism and communism.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty interesting. It's bold, and I like that it feels brave, especially given like how tense everybody is at the moment about their social and political beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like that. I think that one might be my favorite track. But one interesting thing that happened was, so I wrote that one in 2014, 15.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah. So it was like it was probably the first one I did. I think. I don't think I didn't finish it then. But yeah. So I had that soundbite in there, and then also at the end, having Gabor Mate reading it's the last paragraph of The Plague by Albert Camus.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So are you a Camus lover?
Yes. I don't think I can be like
okay.
I'm not a true fan because I've only read like 1.5 of his works, but
yeah.
I like listen to lectures on his stuff and Wikipedia page, like get the summary.
I think Camus is amazing. I think he underappreciated. I don't know if you know who is it? Michael Malice or Jonathan Haidt, but
I know Jonathan Haidt. Yeah,
they did a podcast, and Michael Malice is super into Camus, and then Jonathan Haidt was saying that he read it too late in life, and so it didn't have the impact. But I feel like I read it when I read The Stranger and the Myth of Sisyphus when I was like 19, and that was like perfect. It's the perfect time to internalize some of those ideas.
Totally, yeah. Like, adolescence is like confronting the myth of Sisyphus for sure. Yeah, and yeah, late adolescence, young adulthood. I mean, yeah, but it applies to all of life for sure.
Sorry, it was a sidetrack. I was just excited that it was Camus.
Yeah, no, I'm excited too. Like, there's so many different roads we can go down, but yeah. So it was interesting because the rap in that one, the first part, and then like the capitalism, communism dichotomy mapping onto like the shadow. Right. All that was like before Trump became president in 2016. And then also the Camus thing was before the plague. Right. I mean, sorry, before COVID-19.
Yeah.
The plague reading was before COVID-19.
I think we all got it.
Yeah. And yeah, so I don't know like what that was. If just you could feel that these things were coming. Just sometimes I think that the like ideas that I have or like currents that I pick up on are just like the social media algorithms. Like people that love YouTube like me just get like, if you're a nerdy like 30 or 20 something musician white guy, like you get certain like content curated to you, and then you just confront these ideas and so going back to the shadow, I guess, or how did I'm lost. How did we get to this topic? What were you asking about?
I was talking about the confronting social issues sort of so explicitly like that in your music. I think has a lot of bravery to it. It's very bold and it's striking. It was just
Oh.
something I liked.
Oh yeah, thanks. Yeah, so for that one, it just kind of worked out because it's like the shadow concept is basically the idea that so you have your ego, and that's what you identify as,
Right.
and then you have your persona, and that's like the mask that you put on to get along in social groups. And you can think of like the shadow is the shadow that's cast by the persona. So it's basically like everything that is inside you that has been like shamed, repressed, things that where you're like, oh, kids don't do that. That's bad. You're a bad boy for doing that. You
Right.
get punished. You get sent to your room.
Yep.
The teacher yells at you. Your friends make fun at you when you say these things. Or it's your religion says it's immoral to embrace these things. So like aggressiveness is usually part of it. Unless you're like a naturally very aggressive person, then gentleness is in the shadow. So it's just like sort of the opposite characteristics of what you present to the world that are still, part of you, and you've sort of disavowed them. And so for me, it was that song was sort of about basically just like a greedy capitalist or a Trump-like figure, just people that are very aggressive and selfish and exploitative and take advantage of like the nicest people, people that are like very pure of heart and trusting and don't look out for themselves. And they're like, oh, great, that's a perfect opportunity for me to like exploit them, take their shit, hurt them, and not feel guilt about it. And like that just enrages me.
Right. Yeah.
And so, yeah, that was basically the shadow that I was confronting, and it's sort of mapped on well, then I thought, like, to the capitalist mindset versus a communist mindset.
Right.
And that, like, that is something that's on a lot of people's minds, and there's a way in which you kind of become a lot less intelligent, or at least like articulate, when you haven't integrated the shadow, because whatever the opposite side says, you misinterpret it systematically because you're so angry at them. You see that like they're actually similar to you in some ways. They have these characteristics that you hate about yourself. You don't show them, but they show them. And you're like, how dare you show that part of yourself? That's a disgusting part. But it's like, oh, that's actually in you. Not to the same extent necessarily, but... And so then like the sort of the lesson of that song is like, if you're a person that is generally like unassuming or nice, not assertive or not aggressive or whatever, and you have that sort of resentment or just anger towards people that are that way, the solution is to take that part of your personality back, and that like you need to actually be to like resist Trump and to resist capitalism. You have to be aggressive. You have to be able to like, basically, to be a good person, you have to hurt people.
Right.
And it's really painful.
Yeah.
At least for me to, because just I don't know about you, but like feeling. Just making people feel uncomfortable, even if it's like even if they said something that was hurtful to somebody else, just me calling them out on that, or just like having not in like a call out culture kind of way, but just even having a conversation and confronting them about that, even in a gentle way, is painful to me, because I know that they're like confronted with their embarrassment or like they fucked up, and you're calling that to their attention. It's just, I don't like it at all. I hate that. But I'm
you
finding
hate doing it, you mean?
Doing it, yeah.
I hate it too. Some people seem to enjoy it more than other people.
Right.
Yeah, I don't like making people feel bad or feel uncomfortable. I think I'm actually quite bad at that. I was thinking about this. I feel like I've become worse at it over time too. I feel like when I was in high school and early in college, I was happy to argue with people because it felt easy for me to exist in the idea space and to separate an argument from the personal. And like, I remember there were a couple composers in our undergrad who I argued a lot with. One of them did not go very well, and the other one, Joe Diedrich and I always had like a very healthy, I would say, like conversation setup where we'd argue about like libertarianism and things like that. But lately, I have felt much less comfortable being able to express myself and argue, and I think that has also made me worse at what you're talking about being able to discuss somebody else's issues with them, or like bring up a problem or something like that.
Yeah, I relate to that a lot. Yeah, it is really easy to exist in that, like, the realm of abstraction, and I think that, like, this kind of gets to the shadow idea as well, or at least like the idea of integrating the opposites, which is like what Jungian psychology is all about, is that either one in the extreme, I mean, this sounds like, I don't know, really cliche, but it's just true. Like, either one in the extreme is not good. It's not effective. Right. So you can be like so be a Buddhist,
the middle way.
Exactly. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Buddhism, Taoism, that stuff, like Jung was all about that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to throw you off there.
Oh, no. I'm just like, I'm trying to channel the feelings that I'm having in this moment. And I guess what I'm thinking is, I think a lot of people overestimate how much of an impact you can have by just engaging in argumentation. I think a lot of the times it's about sparring. It's almost like $2 in the woods sparring, and then you get it out of your system and you don't really change. Like, sometimes, like, it sounds like maybe you and Joe like have a healthy way where there's like mutual respect, and maybe on some points you do change your mind, but I think a lot of the times the arguments are like,
I have a lot with him. I think he's convinced me of many, many things, but yes.
That's great. Yeah. But a lot of times it's, it doesn't change the person's mind whatsoever. It makes me think of this quote Gabor Mate talks about a lot. Only in the presence of compassion will people allow themselves to see the truth. And I think that's right. And so, yeah, I don't know. There's just like a lot of polarization and a lot of demonization of the other. And when you have that, it's very difficult to get in that space where you can really emotionally resonate with someone and let them feel safe enough with you to actually like emotionally connect with what you're saying, while also seeing the sense of your argument. And you blend the two together to get like an actual change in their behavior, but it has to come with a change in your behavior too.
Of course.
Because otherwise it's paternalism. It's condescending. It's power. So yeah.
I was talking with another friend of mine who did a podcast a couple months ago, Molly Jones. And I was saying, like, she and I probably have like very different political opinions, but I have like compassion and respect and love for her as a friend. And so that I'm not going to think that even if she thinks something that I don't agree with, I don't think that she wants the world to be terrible. And I don't think that she's trying to hurt people. And so I'm happy to like engage in discourse and say, like, I don't agree with that because of this. And I'm happy for her to say that about me. And I'm actually interested in what she has to say towards me about that kind of thing. But I think it's what you're saying about, in order to engage like that, there has to be compassion.
Yeah.
And it has to exist in both directions, for sure. Or else it won't work at all.
Right.
So what do you see compassion as being? I have this problem, and I've always had this problem with words. Yeah. Like, I like both don't care at all what words mean, and you could use any sound to mean anything, and I don't give a shit. But also, I get very confused about what people, like, the difference between things are. And like, Like, I've been struggling lately with the difference between a feeling and an emotion, or a thought and a feeling. Like, I don't actually know if there's any, like, if a thought and a feeling are different things. They seem to be like tumbling in a washing machine and like informing and bumping into each other. But I don't know if they're distinct. And so, like, compassion, empathy, sympathy, all these ideas, they don't really seem super different. And people use them differently, but I don't have like a pin down what compassion means.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, and I feel the same way. I kind of think that it's like everybody has their own dictionary.
Right.
It's like you're using the same words, but then what is, like, that's the signifier, but the signified is like different for each person. It's like, yeah, every time you've ever heard that usage, I mean, it's always in context, you know, like the word compassion is always in context, and so it gets its meaning from that. So it's like you think about every time you've ever heard somebody say compassion, and it has a slightly different like meaning in each one, and then you think of them all together, and it's like, oh, that's your meaning. That's how you define compassion. Right. And it's not exactly what you mean at all, but it's close enough to like kind of work.
It's like its meaning is like a distributed network or something. It's the emergent meaning that comes out of each node or something.
Totally, yeah, like a complex systems view of meaning or something. Yeah, I want to learn more about that. But so yeah, compassion. It's interesting because in grad school, you know, I haven't read anything that has defined compassion. I mean, we do, you know, a good amount of stuff defining emotions and thoughts and distinguishing them. But I guess I would say compassion is, it's really, I think it's maybe two things. It's seeing the person for who they are. So not like imposing just being attuned to the present moment and viewing the person without sort of like a hidden agenda. So you're really just listening to them and viewing them. And then secondly, you wish well for them.
Yep.
In their own terms. Wish them to be well and what that means to them. I think maybe that's compassion.
Yeah. I think that is one of the better ways I've heard it laid out. I think it gets at some important pieces of it. Yeah. That'd be a good clip or something. What's compassion? Ask Danny. He's got it. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, I don't know if other people what they say about it, but I liked what you said about thoughts and feelings and are they different? Because, so one thing in clinical psychology, CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, is like ascendant, and it's like there's this term like evidence-based treatment. As recommended
that term really like sends a flag up in my head every time I hear it. But
I'm curious, what's
keep going. I keep derailing you, I think.
No, that's okay. I am interested what that flag is, but yeah, it's basically a marketing term. Like, so there is evidence supporting it, but there's also like a history of really misinterpreting what that evidence is, and like also there's debates about what counts as evidence, right? But anyway, so I guess that's a whole rabbit hole. But basically, like a fundamental premise of CBT is that you have cognitions, thoughts, and you have emotions, and those two are distinct.
Yeah.
But I do know that, I don't know which cultures, but I know that in other cultures in general, there's more of a feeling that they are not distinct, that they're woven together. And I happen to think that is what they are. Like, and so one thing in therapy you might do sometimes is like, if you ask somebody, how do you feel about this thing? And they say like, I don't know, I feel like he betrayed me. And then you might be like, well, betrayal isn't a feeling. So what was the emotion underneath that betrayal?
Right.
And so I started getting into that and doing that. And then I realized, like, when it happens to me, I kind of feel invalidated because I'm like, no, I mean, yeah, I can say, okay, underneath that is like, you know, sadness and anger, basically, like the two things. But betrayal is a very specific form. It's like a description of what happened. So you like the way you thought about the situation, that you trusted them and you were close to them, and they did something to betray that trust and it was unexpected, and then you felt hurt, but you also feel mad at them at the same time or something like that. And it's like that, those thoughts and those feelings are all, and like the way it bubbles up in your body as you're saying these things, they're all tied together, like you said, in the washing machine. And so I think you can separate them out, but it's just it's a choice whether or not you want to do that.
Yeah, and I know that conversation, like I feel betrayed, that's not a feeling or something like that. And I feel like where I'm at with it is like there's emotions, which I see as like these like colorful fogs, and there's like the yellow, you could be in that fog, or the black or the red or whatever, and that's like the fog you're in. And then the feeling is like related to the tactile, so like you feel hurt or you like think they're betraying you, and like it's all like very physical or something. That's
I like that. I like that image. It does feel like you're in, it's almost like the aura idea, like the mist, the fog, the aura that you feel like you're contending with when you feel a certain emotion. It's sort of like it feels like it's in the air. In your field of consciousness. Yeah. So
I want to touch one more thing. I kind of want to go back to the tonality idea.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit based on the evidence-based flag. Like, that goes off in my head. I feel like I'm very sensitive to statements that feel like they're giving authority to things without explaining why it's deserved. Like some terms that are going around a lot now are like follow the science. And like a statement like that really bothers me, regardless of what the truth of anything is. Like the idea of the science is a ridiculous idea to me.
Yeah, totally.
And evidence-based, it makes it feel like they're saying we're right and this is the right thing to do because the evidence, just like the science, says this.
Right.
And that to me is quite a claim that is very often not backed up as it needs to be. And I feel this with tonality as well, is there's lots of claims about what tonality is and where it comes from that are taking a very small piece of science that is true, or seems to be true, I believe it, but discounting tons of other things, and they're saying we're just following the science of frequency relationships or something like that. Like resonating bodies. Like because you have an octave and a fifth, and because a major triad is outlined in the low partials, therefore tonality. But tonality isn't a major triad or a fifth. Tonality is like a system of functions. It's a very complex system. And there's other intervals that are other pieces of the harmonic series, and we don't tune to the harmonic series in a true sense. So there's all of these like ways that it's removed from that. And I think the statement of there's a major triad, therefore tonality, is ridiculous.
Right, yeah. I agree. I wonder if we can get further along with that, because I also think that there is something to it. Like, and I think you agree too, because you're acknowledging like that there's something about the way that the overtone series, has the fifth and the third and then the seventh, and eventually then it gets weird with is it like the flat ninth or something? Well,
right, because you get C, C, G, C, E, G, and then fake B flat. So you don't get the piano B flat. So that's what, like, I feel like right there is where things start to diverge.
Yeah.
Also, that's a dominant seventh chord. So, so is it a tonic? Are you hearing the tonic, or are you always hearing the dominant? And then how is this relating to our system?
Right. Yeah, because it seems like, at the beginning, it would make sense that, the first however many harmonics are outlining the triad, and like that would be the tonic. And then later on, so there's something about that makes sense to me though, that like, okay, now it's a dominant, that like as you get farther in the harmonic series, there's more notes. It's almost like you're moving up the scale, or you're adding complexity or something. Yep. And now it has the function of a dominant, or a dominant fifth.
Right.
I don't know what about that makes sense necessarily, but there seems like there's something kind of to that.
Yep. I agree, but the way you're talking about it now is very personal, and it's you get a sense. You're not saying, "Look, it's right there. The evidence says."
Yeah, exactly.
I am right.
Yeah, it's
like you're allowing it to be fuzzy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which I think is important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What I mean, what else do you think would explain the dominance, the hegemony of the diatonic system?
Western imperialism? I don't know. I mean, I think that every culture has a music of its own, and Western culture, like European culture, kind of like took over the whole world. And I mean, even little things like our calendar, our clock, our 20, like all of these sort of structures have now been imposed over the entire world. So even if you go to Indonesia or something, they're still running on a 24-hour clock. They're still using a calendar just like we do. And the like K-pop is all, not all, but very based on Western pop music. I feel like it's a cultural export and like cultural dominance kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, I agree. But like also, I mean, so this is where my knowledge kind of runs out, but I thought that, before, well, yeah, I guess before colonialism and mm-hmm. like was it the gamelan mm-hmm. music?
Right.
Was that the one based on the pentatonic scale? Is it gamelan or?
I mean, gamelan music has a pentatonic and a septatonic scale. They have two scales.
Mm.
But they don't map. They map roughly onto a pentatonic scale, but not exactly.
Hmm.
And I don't think it's based. I don't think they got it from like
right.
Bulgaria or something like that.
Right, and that's what I'm saying is that there's some core, like if
yeah.
Almost like this is like what Jung did with like psychology, but do it with music instead. Like study all the different cultures, and then what's like the archetypes of music almost,
right.
like the basic forms, or like Chomsky's universal grammar,
right?
Like a universal grammar of music. I don't know what that is, but
I mean, I think octave equivalence is pretty common.
Yeah.
I don't think it's everywhere though. I think there's like, it's difficult because there's so much cross-domain mapping in how we even talk about music. Like the idea
right.
of up and down, even that, like, that's already a huge metaphorical layer that we've added. But how do we talk about it other than that?
Right. Yeah. And it does have, I mean, so that kind of stuff, it does, I think, map onto our psychology and our nervous system. I can't explain it exactly in this moment, but there is a general association of positive emotions with upness and negative emotions with downness.
Yeah.
Feeling down, depression, sadness is associated with fatigue and being tired, and actually laying down, jumping for joy is literally going up.
But mapping it onto like frequency, that's pretty. I don't think it's universal. I think some cultures call what we call high notes fast notes.
Really, I didn't know that. Wow. Because the frequency is.
I mean, maybe
faster?
I don't know, but I think there's different metaphors you can use And it's just so internal that down is low frequencies and high is high frequencies or something. But you could also have different cultural relationships to those notes. And so, like, the notes at the bottom of the keyboard could be the ones that make you happy culturally, and those could be the high notes. I mean, you could flip it.
Right, yeah. And that's...
Or you could call major chords high chords and minor chords low chords or something.
Yeah. Jacob Collier has, like, an interesting naming system related to that, with the white keys and the black keys, I want to say. I can't remember what it is, but yeah, this reminds me of a masterclass with Dembski one time, and it was a summer class.
Back to Dembski.
Yeah, and we were talking about, like, radical relativism as a philosophy as applied to music, and there was, like, one guy in the class, a grad student, I think he played violin, and he didn't quite agree, and him it was, like, inconceivable that this thing that he played that was, you know, very kind of a stereotypically sad violin melody, that could, like, signify or evoke happiness in somebody. Right. I don't know. I mean, everything is contextual, right? Like, so you can have, I think you can have the same musical gesture and have any emotional response to it in the right context. But then the question is, if you made all, like, the contexts equivalent, so, like, okay, I don't even know what I'm saying exactly now, but its role in the plot of a drama or, like, a social situation, if everybody had the same understanding, this is what the plot is and this is the social situation and the social dynamics, and then this musical gesture happens, and you didn't have any you never heard music before in your life, and that's the first time you heard the low notes, would there be, I don't know, some sort of convergence on low being low. Like low?
Yeah. I don't know. I don't even know how you would know.
Yeah, I don't think you can know.
I think it's the comfortability existing in the suppositional world. I think, relating it back to your album, do you remember Daria Tinikova? Yeah. So,
she was great.
Yeah.
She is great.
Yep.
Sure.
I was talking with her a couple months ago about, like, the purpose of art and the purpose of making music, and in thinking about these suppositional worlds, or these proposed worlds. And so this violin player, it seems like he's sort of uncomfortable existing in the maybe somebody else hears it a different way.
Right.
Which is interesting. Like, I wonder why that even is. Like, what does it pose a threat to him or something like that? Because to me, there's nothing lost in maybe somebody hears something some way. Yeah. Even if you don't know anybody who does, maybe somebody does.
Okay, this is going to sound like a stretch, but I completely agree with you that it is a threat, and it kind of relates to death anxiety to me. Right. Have you by chance listened to or read Ernest Becker?
Mm-mm.
Or heard of, like, terror management theory?
No.
Yeah, the basic idea is that, like, culture, the main, like, psychological function of culture is to make you feel like a person of value in a world of meaning, and that basically defends against death anxiety and sort of the existential dread and like the myth of all the problems caused by myth of Sisyphus and nihilism, and that it's all pointless and we're just apes on this rock and the universe is going to go cold and it's all for nothing. We're fucked. Like that.
Even saying it, isn't it fun? Isn't it fun to say that?
It feels good to say that. Yeah.
The universe is silent to the what is it? The probing of man or something like that.
I don't know that one, but
anyway.
I like it. Yeah, and so then the idea is sort of when you're indoctrinated into this culture, and it gives you your sense of purpose and meaning and value, and therefore like guidance how to navigate in the world, and you encounter a different culture, they use that to explain why, well, okay, they like undermine the your sense of validity of your own cultural worldview, and that hurts. That brings the death anxiety back. And so to get rid of it, you got to kill that person, or just like demean them, that they're like, you know, they're idiots with their crazy culture, their foreign culture. Like, you demean them. You find some way to like defend against it. So that guy, just going back, I think it is a threat, like this idea that something that's such a fundamental like guiding point in his life could mean something totally different to somebody else.
Yeah.
And he probably just needs to do mushrooms.
Yeah. Nice. Beautiful. Cool. Well, that was a cool way to end. I have like 1,000 more topics that we could talk about, and like I'm having fun. But do you wanna try playing some music?
Yeah. I could also, well, can I go? I could go more. I do have plans at 7 my time. So yeah, we have, I mean, an hour and a half.
Okay. Yeah. I have a lesson in an hour. Well, maybe we could play something and then see if that sparks anything, and then kind of like do a fade out.
Yeah. Yeah. Sounds good. I think that works.
Cool. You want to try something?
Yeah.
All right. Cool.
You want to switch to a different feel?
Sure. I think that it came into something really nice. It felt connected at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Nice.
that was cool.
Yeah.
Fun, man.
Yeah. There's a lot of moments there that I was surprised that we were able to lock in rhythmically.
It'll definitely not sound the same.
Okay.
But that's cool. Actually, when I've been doing banjo sometimes, just like a straight up claw hammer, joom chicka joom chicka joom, even though we feel locked in the performance, and it is kind of locked in its own way on the podcast. As long as it's consistent, like you kind of get used to that difference of rhythm.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm excited to hear that second one, especially. I think that was cool.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah. It's fun. So, have you been playing with other people, or playing much lately, other than the album? And that's all you, right?
It was all me,
Yeah.
No, I haven't. Honestly, this is the first time I played in months.
Really?
Yeah. Because, my time, like this summer especially, and certainly this winter, just went into mixing and then school stuff. And so, I mean, it was really fun. I haven't jammed in so long.
Did you mix it yourself?
I did, yeah.
Nice. It sounds great.
Thanks. Yeah, that
Mixing is hard, man.
Oh, dude, it's such a process. I went I don't know if you can relate where you, I learned just from like the internet, and so many YouTube videos and articles, but you think that you make some breakthrough and like, it's this one technique, or just like some session, it sounds so great.
Yep.
And then the next day or the next week you go back and it's like, that sounds terrible. What was I doing?
Yep.
So many of those moments, but I think that I finally got to a point where I'm like, okay, I think that this is legit. But so much automation, so much damn automation.
Well, I got out of a lot of that process in my last album, because the idea of it was hiding and like kind of like what we've been talking about a little bit, but like being very sort of closed off to talking to other people about ideas and all of the different ways that hiding is like manifest in society today, but then also in the music, right? Like if you put enough reverb and distortion on, you can hide a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Like you can think you're awesome, and then you go to the acoustic guitar and like you're, wow, I'm not very good. But so the entire album, there's no dry signal. It's all running through, it's all 100% wet signal through delays and reverbs.
Nice.
And so it's just this like wash of sound for the whole thing. And then the lyrics are just these little questions like, what if you're wrong, and stuff like that. But it's just these ideas of like everything we hide. We hide our flaws, we hide our feelings, we hide our questions, we hide everything.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
But then you don't have to mix it. That's really the point.
The culmination. Yeah. I definitely want to take that approach. The next thing that I do.
You want to take just run it all through reverb and delay.
Yeah, I'm just steal your idea. No, but yeah, having just like a very specific concept and something that doesn't require so much like, what's the word, like diving into the minutia,
right? So
much editing and good. It sounds great. Hiding sounds great. I was really enjoying it.
That one that I posted, that drum part is like a 7 + 7 + 7 + 6 idea that I got from. Do you know the band Carnivool?
No.
They're an Australian like prog metal band that I heard about like a year ago, and I've become like super into their music. They're another band that's like really excited me, and they just have these crazy structures. So that was one of them. It's this really cool. It's 27 beats long, 7 + 7 + 7 + 6, and then the kick never hits on the downbeat.
Oh, nice.
So it's all anticipated, kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I knew that there was something like vaguely polyrhythmic or like cycling going on about the drums.
Uh-huh.
And it was I had the feeling that it's that feeling where you know that there's some pattern that's there and you can latch onto it, but you don't quite know what it is. And it was like a very pleasing feeling.
Yeah. Well, what I really like about that particular beat is it could almost just be like some 4/4 thing. Like you have no idea unless you're really listening. You can just let it go, and it feels relatively normal.
Yeah, I think that's really cool because I've noticed there is a lot more rhythmic experimentation in like popular music. Yes. I think, and it's people doing stuff like that. I think that you kind of provide a bridge where. Because I think the average person isn't like a drummer or like a prog head that's gonna like count out and be like, oh, this is 7/16 and then 5/4. Like they just if it has that feeling that even if it's slightly off, like in neo soul, I love rhythms in neo soul. I have no idea how to do it well.
Oh, but, like the quintuplet swing and stuff.
Yeah,
and like the
Dilla
like drunk
beats.
feel.
Yeah. Yep. Jacob Collier, the stuff that he does with like where it's not even, or at least as far as I can tell, it's not mathematical. It's like you have some pattern, but then you just ever so slightly, like in a bodily way, delay it or go early. And it's not the same every time. That kind of stuff. I used to think it sounded really bad, honestly. And like when rappers started getting into that too. Yeah. With getting offbeat or whatever, that's part of the flow is this like almost like going outside, but not the scale and there's the rhythm. But I'm starting to get into it now, and it's really, anyways, it sounds great, and it's kind of like in line with what you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, especially the push and pull with it. I feel like it's embracing the humanness of performance. Like we're not computers. We're not actually very good at quantizing.
Yeah,
we can try. We can try really, really hard. But yeah. Cool, man. Well, thanks so much for doing this. Everybody should go out and listen to your new album right now. I think it's available pretty much everywhere streaming, right?
Yep.
All right. So I was listening to it on Amazon Music. It's on Spotify, Apple, all that. Archetype Asylum. And then the name of your project is not your name. It's Exodus to Infinity, right?
Yep.
Okay.
That's right.
Cool. So check out social media. Check all the stuff out. Thanks so much, Danny. Thanks for talking to me today.
Hey, Anthony. Yeah, this is awesome.
Thanks for listening or watching. Please remember to check out Exodus to Infinity and the new album, Archetype Asylum. And please remember to leave a comment, and subscribe to my channels. And if you would like to consider supporting my content generally, please visit my Patreon page. Thanks. Bye.